So let's talk about families for just a few minutes, okay? Because here's the thing about family. If you want an awesome family, it doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't just kind of trip out. It doesn't just kind of say, oh, well, here it is. No, if you're going to have an awesome family, you've got to be intentional. An awesome family does not just happen accidentally. And so I would even make the assertion, because the family is under such attack in our culture and by so many different things that are happening in our world. And this is not new. I'm not talking about just right now. I'm talking about for the last, my whole life, family has been under attack in our culture. And as people have tried to divide families and tear them up, and all kinds of things have happened. I would make the argument this morning that you have to fight intentionally for an awesome family. You can't just be passive, but you say, I've got to take some steps. If you just kind of sit back and kind of let things go on cruise control, you can have an average family. You can have some awesome moments, but you're not going to have an awesome family if you kind of let just things spill out and things just kind of happen. As a matter of fact, Nehemiah writes this in chapter 4. He says, and I looked and arose and said to the nobles and to the officials and to the rest of the people, do not be afraid of them. So these people who are trying to attack our families and tear them up, we don't have to be afraid of those people. Why? He says, remember the Lord. And that's where it starts, right? When we're feeling like we just can't handle it and it's hard and it's this unrelenting, the attack is coming at us. Remember the Lord. He is with you. He has not abandoned you. He has not forsaken you, but he is with you. He says, remember the Lord, who is great and awesome. And he's right. He is. And he says, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes. So you're going to have to be intentional about it. You're going to have to take some steps and say, yes, I want an incredible family. I want an awesome family. And it doesn't just happen. So I'm going to share with you real quickly today, sort of a different kind of message than we ordinarily teach today, but 4 things real fast about family. The first thing is that awesome families play together. So I got right here everybody's favorite game in the whole world. I don't know if you can see this. Maybe you can zoom in on this just a little bit, but it's Candyland, right? Have you been playing Candyland like more than you ever wanted to the last 3 months of your life? I mean, are you about to scream and saying that Candyland is just 2 steps away from hell? I know, because it just keeps going and going and going. And like, because your kid, can we play Candyland or Uno? Uno is just as bad, right? Because there's no skill in this game. It's just, and see, if you're like me and you're real competitive, there's no way you can guarantee you're going to win this game. And look, this game has been played so much, it's got duct tape on it. I mean, can you see that? I mean, it's all, but here's the thing. It says, it's an easy game when it says ages 3+. I think this is funny. Adult assembly required. But we start with Candyland, right? Because families have to play together. I don't know if that's going to stand up or not. I don't think it is. I'm going to let it fall. But families have got to play together. So here's my first question for you to talk about as a family today, right? What does your family like to do together? What does your family like to do together? And families should have fun. Families should not just be, listen, it is not a lab experiment trying to say, if I do this and this is what my kid will turn out like. It's not a military. Mom and dad, you are not a couple of drill sergeants trying to, get everybody, little kid to have perfect manners and great posture and do everything just the right way at the right time. You're not a coach. Your job in life is not to produce a Division I athlete or a professional football player. That's not the goal in life. That's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be building disciples is what we're supposed to be doing. We should be seeing our children grow in their relationship with the Lord. That's why when we start back on our worship services and on our campuses, part of the reason that we're doing family worship services is it's a good thing. Now, part of it is we're not ready yet to have children's ministry yet and keep everyone safe, but when we're all together, that's a good thing. It's a bad thing for children to hear and see you worship for the first time when they're in middle school. They ought to see that when they're young. They ought to see that at home. They ought to see that at church. And even Solomon, the wisest man who may have ever lived, he says, listen, I think it's a great thing for people to have fun. Look what he says. He says, and I commend joy. He recommends it. He doesn't recommend that you be angry and frustrated and kind of all the time. He says, listen, joy is a great thing. He says, for man has nothing better under the sun but to eat and drink and be joyful. That's a great thing, he says, for this will go with him in his toil through the days of his life that God has given him under the sun. And he says that, but also the Apostle Paul, he says this, he writes this in 1 Timothy, he says this, as for the rich in this present age, and that's us. Did you realize that? If you make more than, I think it's $32,000 a year, you're in the wealthiest, I think it's 78% of people in the world. So if you've got a car, you're very wealthy. As for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty, nor to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but on God who richly provides us with everything to do what with? What does it say? To enjoy. To enjoy. And so it's important to have fun. Do you know it's interesting when you ask children what are their favorite things to do as a family? You know what they say? Number one thing, it's not even close. They love to play board games with their parents. Why? Because there's interaction with them there. You know the second thing that children says that they like to do the most? They want to go to the park where they can play with their parents. And here's the thing. We think, oh, it's so great to spend time with them when they're 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. It's great to spend time with them when they're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. And if you'll do things the right way when they're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, when they are 14, 15, 16, 17, they'll start to become your friends. And when they get to be 19, 20, 21, 22, they'll be your very best friends. That's what'll happen. And so it's being intentional. It's about having fun. You know, that was something that in our home that we put a huge value on. You know, we're going to have fun. We're going to laugh. We're going to go do fun things, right? And sometimes it was, hey, listen, we're running out to Waffle House at 1 o'clock in the morning because, you know, Dad's hungry, so let's go. And sometimes it's something like, hey, I come home and surprise and throw everybody in the car. We're going to go get ice cream, or we're going to go we're going to go play some game, or we're going to go swim somewhere. Just a surprise kind of thing. But it's thinking about, hey, what can you do that's fun? And while you've been sitting around the house now for 9 or 10 weeks, and kids are a little trapped. And, you know, and it's funny because a lot of people said, you know, my kids really don't want to go anywhere. They're talking with me more. They're spending more time with me. Yeah, because they love you. And so you can be intentional about what you're doing and how you're doing things with them. Because, see, as parents, we put such pressure on ourselves sometimes to say, okay, I want to say the right thing. I want to say this thing to my kid that he's going to remember for the rest of his life. And, you know, and so often we try and do that, and we think this, and we walk out there going, hey, that was a great talk, or really good. And the kid doesn't remember a thing you said. I mean, honestly, they don't. Okay, but here's the thing. People may not remember what you say, but they will usually remember what they feel. See, that big talk you had with your kid when he was 4 years old, he has no idea what you said. But he remembers that Dad loved spending time with him. He remembers that Dad would throw ball with him in the backyard. He remembers that Mom would sit down and they would read stories together. Right? That's the things that they remember. And by the way, men, do you understand the very best thing, practically speaking, that you can do for your children? Okay, write this down. The very best thing that you can do, practically speaking, for your children is love your wife. You want to teach your children what it looks like to love your wife. You want your sons to grow up so that they love their wives. And that your little girl, that she grows up and she says, I'm not compromising with some kind of guy. But no, I want somebody who treats me better than my dad, because that's what she's going to do. She's going to marry someone that she believes will take better care of her than you can. So why not raise the bar way up and say, I am going to live an extraordinary life so that my daughter says, I'm not settling for some guy down here, but she says, I want somebody up here. So how do we do that? The very best way to do that is you love your wife. Solomon says this in Ecclesiastes 3. It says, enjoy life with the wife whom you love. Enjoy spending time with her. She is not a drudgery for you. She is a gift from God for you. All the days of your vain life that he has given you under the sun, because that is your portion in life. Listen, your wife, men, is your portion in life. She is a blessing to you. And in your toil, which you toil under the sun. And look at your children not as being, they get on my nerves. No, do you realize that children are a gift from the Lord? That's what it says in Psalm 127:3. It says, behold, look, behold, children are a heritage, a gift from the Lord, the fruit of the womb, a reward. I mean, do you get that your children are a gift to you? That God says, look, I'm giving them to you. And look, and you know, it really bothers me. I mean, it rubs my fur the wrong way when somebody sits there and they says, I'm just ready for my kids just to move along. My kid just wears me out. Now, I understand everybody needs a vacation from your spouse, from your husband, from your job, from everything every now and then. But when somebody's consistently saying, I'm just tired of my kids, I just wish they would just grow up and leave the house. I just sit there and go, hey, what's wrong? I mean, honestly, I know so many people who are just praying and praying that God would give them a child. And then when I hear people saying, my kids, I'm like, no, God, they're a gift from the Lord. He entrusted them to you. And so let's look at them that way. And remember, your kids spell love differently. Your kids do not spell love Love. Kids spell love Time. They want you to spend time with them. Look, Dad, they know when you're sitting there talking to them and you're going, and you're looking at your phone. Put it away. That's what I have to do. That's it. Look, I have to do that. There are times I come home and I put my phone in another room so I don't even hear it. So that I can focus in on what's going on. I remember when my kids were small and I was traveling, I was speaking different places around the country. And so when I was home, sometimes I'd be in my office at the house and I'd be working, and my kids would come in and talk to me, and I'm still working, like, And they said, Dad, I'm right here. Dad, why won't you listen to me? And I can remember the day that happened, and I said, look, I'm just going to walk away from this. This is not important. You are what's really important. And so be intentional. Figure out things that you can do that work well for your family, because awesome families play together. Second thing is that awesome families grow together. Awesome families grow together. Now, men, this takes work. It's hard for us. We think, I don't know that I can do this, because you take the lead in growing your family under the headship of Jesus Christ. That's what we do. But check this out. Men are builders and cultivators. So this should come easy to us, because this is what we naturally do. We take something and we say, ooh, I got that. I want to make that better. Or you're an entrepreneur. You've got an idea. Well, what if we could do this? Well, what if we could do that? And you want to put something together, or you start a project, or you start a new business, or you say, well, the water is draining off the side of the house kind of a catawonky kind of way, so I think we can fix that. And men, we love doing that. That comes naturally to us. That's why we love it when we come home and your wife says, hey, what'd you do at work today? And we tell them. And part of the reason we tell them is because we want to get an attaboy from them. Hey, good job, you worked hard. But here's the thing, is that this comes very naturally to us. So why can we do this at work all day long, and we come home and go, I'm just going to quit. I'm going to watch TV. I'm going to scroll on my phone. I need some time by myself for the next 5 hours and then go to bed. Now, this is something we should do very easily, because this is who God made us to be. We're builders and cultivators. We like to grow things and see things happen. It comes very, very easily. So I think about this, about families grow together, and I think of a watering can, because that's what we're doing. We're watering our families, right? We're making sure that they're growing and they don't get starved and dried out. Because for something to grow, it's got to have some water poured on it. So what are you pouring into your families? Moms, what are you pouring into your children? Hey, kids, what are you pouring into your parents so that your family grows together? Because it's not just moms and dad, but it's also our children. We have a role in doing this too. So the second thing we talk about is a watering can. So dads, you can let mom raise the kids if you want to. You say, hey, that's your job. But if you let her raise the kids, you won't have a relationship with them later on. When they're little, they're going to hang out with you anyway. Unless you're just mean as a snake, they're going to hang out with you. You come walking in the house, and they come running to see you, and they hug your, grab you around your knee, and like, yeah, this is great. I'm just telling you, that day is going to stop. There's a day you're going to come home, and they're not going to run out to come see you anymore. And it's not because they hate you, it's just because they're growing, and they're going to have a different way that they show you affection. But if you have not been plugged in with what's going on with them, as they get older, they're going to go find other things. Or you can build the kind of relationship with them, build an awesome family, so that what happens is that they grow in their relationship with you as well. Luke 2:52, it says this, it says, and Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. So that there's four things I think that we can get there from our families, right? This is how we grow. We grow in spiritual, physical, relational, and with one another. Right? So there's four different things that we can grow as a family together in. So here's a question for you to talk with your family today, okay? And kids, you should answer this question. And mom, dad, you should listen. What have you learned from your family? What have you learned from your family? And tell mom and dad what you're learning from them. And husbands and wives, tell one another, hey, this is what we're learning from one another. And let's see how we can grow even more than where we are. Now, it turns out that every family has problems and every family has struggles, but most problems that we have are because you didn't learn them in your family. So there are some things that we should be learning from our families. Let me run through these real quickly. So what do we learn from our families? The first thing we learn from our families, we learn what to do with feelings. Because, listen, at home, it's very easy and safe to be angry or sad or joyful or a little crazy. And we learn how to deal with feelings because sometimes feelings are very hard to wrestle through sometimes in our lives. So we learn that with our families. The second thing is that we learn how to handle conflict. Because you will say things to your family that you won't say anywhere else. Because it's a safe place. And so we learn how to handle conflict. We learn what to do when things are difficult. And we learn how to handle that in a scriptural way. The third thing that we can learn from our families is how to handle loss. And every single person is going to have to struggle through loss at different points in your life. You're going to have to sit here and go, okay, yeah, that's what's going on. This is how I handle this. It was years and years ago. My wife's mother died. She had brain cancer, and when we found out she had brain cancer, we knew it was going to be very short. And we asked somebody, "Hey, what do we do?" And somebody said, "You should tell them the truth." I was like, "But that's really going to weird them out. That they're going to find out their grandmother is going to die." And they said, "Well, listen, death is a part of life. You need to go ahead and tell them what's going on, so that they don't feel like later on that you hid something from them." That was hard. Now, whole different story. The first time that we had to handle loss, we had a dog. We had his dog, Mace. And so the dog died, and we'd had her for 13 years. And 2 days before Christmas, we go to bury her. And I was concerned that my little boys were just going to be completely heartbroken. They're like, I put the dog in the ground, whatever. And I was crying like a little 3-year-old girl. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. She was a good dog. So, they probably thought at that point that their dad had completely lost his mind. But we've got to say, look, no, we've got to learn how to handle things because you're not going to win at everything. And sometimes there's going to be loss. Sometimes there's going to be emotional loss. Sometimes there's going to be financial loss. Sometimes there's going to be some kind of, it feels like even a spiritual loss. And we've got to learn how to handle that in our families. Proverbs 24:16 says this. It says, for the righteous falls 7 times. He'll fall over and over again, but rises again. But the wicked stumble in times of calamity. So we learn how to handle loss in our families. It's going to happen to all of us. The fourth thing, what we learn from our families, is what values matter most. What things are really, really important. And our families, that's where we should learn the difference between what is sin and what is not sin. Now, the Bible says real plainly there's basically three types of temptations that we have to deal with. There's the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. And so I put these in a 3Ps here. So the lust of the flesh, possessions. Okay, what is it that's so important for you to hang on to, and what is not so important for you to hang on to? Right? What lust of the eyes, pleasure. What are the things that is, because it's okay to enjoy life and enjoy even to enjoy God. But what about when you're seeking pleasure for the sake of having pleasure, and that becomes an idol? So we talk about being careful about that. The pride of life position. I want to be better than somebody else. I'm comparing myself to other people. So we talk about look. Let's learn what these things are, because if you'll notice. Any kind of advertising that you see on television, that you see online, that you hear on the radio, that you see on a billboard, that you see in a newspaper ad, every single kind of advertising will fall into one of these three categories. They're trying to get you to buy something, to enjoy something, or to better your position in life. And that's their allure. And sometimes it's not just one of these things. They're trying to do all three of these things with you in the ad. Sometimes it's two. But that's the drive and the push that they're doing in their advertising. The last thing we should learn from our families, we should learn good habits. We should learn good habits. And because those things really are where we understand the things I do now are going to have a long-lasting effect on me later on in life. So we talk about how do families grow together. So real quickly, through example, you don't say one thing and do another, right? See, like if I was going to teach you how to dribble a basketball, now what I could do is I could say, well, here's what you're going to do. You're going to put your hand on the ball, but not really your hand, because if you put your palm on the ball, you're going to kind of slap it a little bit, but you kind of want to use your fingertips, and you're going to take your hand in an up and down vertical motion with a regular rhythm to it. Push the ball toward the floor, and as it bounces back up, you want to push it down again. And that's a little confusing, right? And even Jesus, when he taught by example. When he washed the disciples' feet, he said, do it this way. And he showed people how to do that. When he said this is how to pray for people and how to teach and how to pray, he would show them how to do it and not just say, let me give you the lecture. Because see, it's a lot easier to sit here and say, look, this is how you dribble. And do it by example. Dribbling by example is much easier to understand than just telling someone, this is how to do it. So families grow together through example, through conversations, through having these good conversations where we learn from one another, we encourage one another. It says this in Deuteronomy chapter 6, you shall teach them diligently to your children and shall talk of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way and when you lie down and when you rise. And what is he saying? He said, look for opportunities to teach your children. And it doesn't have to be, okay, every night at 8 o'clock we're having family devotion time. That's great if you do that, but that's not the only way to do it. He says, look, do this as you're going through life. He says, look, when you're sitting around the house, okay, let's talk about this. When you go somewhere, when you're walking together somewhere, when you're driving together somewhere, when you're riding bikes together somewhere, right? When you're resting, that's a great time to talk. And when you wake up, please don't talk to me about those kind of things when I wake up. I'm not a morning person, so give me a few minutes. Don't let me just wake up and say, hey, I need to tell you this. But it talks about, hey, listen, as we're moving through different points of life, this is how we grow in our relationship, having these conversations about spiritual things. It's not through criticism. That's not how we grow. When you're always criticizing your children and your spouse, what you're doing is you're just putting the worst thing that you can think about them in their mind first. Basically, what you're doing is you're focusing on what you don't want instead of what I do want. Think about a baseball game. We may start playing baseball in a couple of months, right? And somebody goes out to the mound, and because the pitcher's struggling a little bit, goes out and wants to coach him a little bit, and he says, look, whatever you do, don't throw the curveball. And what's that pitcher going to think? He's sitting there thinking, okay, I better throw the curve, because you've planted that seed in his mind. But no, instead, you go out there and say, look, here's what I would love to see you do. I want to encourage you to do this. This would be a great idea. Hey, go with the fastball right here. It's going to work. I know it. You've got the best fastball anybody has on this team right now. Just burn that fastball in there so that we can strike this guy out and that we can come up to bat. That's all that happens, right? Because when you criticize people, you're labeling them. And you're saying, look, that's who you are. And, basically, in Ephesians 6:4, it says that fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Now, provoke, that's when you're talking over and over and over again. That's nagging. That's pushing, right? I think about this. It's like a turtle, right? Have you ever seen a little kid with a turtle goes up in the shell, and so you get a stick and you start poking in there in the shell, trying to get the turtle to stick his head back out? What's he going to do? He retreats further and further and further. No, we don't provoke them. We encourage them. We want to bring out the best in them and not just push. Also, you don't grow your family through comparison. You don't say, well, I tell you what, your brother, he's so much smarter than you are. You're an idiot. Why can't you be like your sister? Hey, the Smiths, they're a really awesome family. I wish you would act like their kids. That's not helpful. Not helpful. So awesome families play together. Awesome families grow together. Awesome families protect one another, right? Awesome families protect one another. So when there's a storm going on, what do? You put a coat on, right? And when the rain is coming and the storm's coming, you cover up. So look, I was thinking about beatboxing here, but I'm not, because nobody does that anymore. That's really bad. So I'm not going to do that. But so thank you for not throwing anything at me. But here's what Matthew 5:45 says. It says, "For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and the unjust." Every family is going to go through storms. Every single family goes through storms. And sometimes they last a long time. Sometimes they're very short and very intense. Sometimes it's just like a quick spring storm. So the question for right now to ask your family is, why do you love your family so much? Why do you love your family so much? So I want to suggest to you, there are some things that we should shelter our kids from, some storms to shelter our kids from. The first thing is change. There's going to be change in lives. Things are going to move quickly. And you know what? Most people don't like change, so you need to help your children navigate that. There's a giant shift that goes from going to preschool to going to school, and from elementary to middle school to high school to life. There's huge changes when you get a driver's license. There's huge changes when they start processing thought and they move from concrete thought to abstract thought. There's all kinds of things that happen. So, but you help them through those things, right? Because look, if I'm driving my car and I hit this giant pothole and boom, what I have to do? I've got to go get the wheels realigned again. I've got to get things lined back up again. And that's what we do. We help them navigate through the bumps in life. We don't hide them from them, but we help protect them. We shelter them. They're not completely covered up. We're sheltering them, right? They know it's there. Don't let them just pop into life and find out, oh, I never knew something like that happened. Number two, harmful ideas. The average person, by the time they're 18 years old, has watched over 20,000 hours of television. They've seen thousands of murders. They've seen thousands of people be abused in romantic relationships. They've seen all kinds of things done the wrong way. And if they play video games, they've seen that by a factor of 10,000 more. And so what do? We say, look, when they see those things, we talk about it, we move through it, we listen, say, here's what we can learn from this. The third thing is rejection. And all of us know that there is nothing as painful as rejection. And so when your kid gets rejected, when he tries out for for baseball and doesn't make the team. When she tries out for cheerleading and doesn't make the squad. When he was really going to do good on a spelling test and he really goofed it up. We coach them through that. We say, look, there's that ultimately you're going to find your acceptance in Jesus. That's so important. And then the last thing is that awesome families serve God and serve others. So I've got a globe this morning to remember that it's not all just about us, but it's about everybody. And our focus is not just on us, but our focus is on God and everybody else. Hebrews 10:24 says this. It says, let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works. And so very early on, I taught this to my children, and I didn't know whether it would work or not, but it has worked like a champ. 3 words. Give, save, spend. Now, what I want to do, I want to teach my children what to do financially, okay? And I said, look, you got 100%. So I said, you give 10%. You give your first 10% to the Lord. The next 10% you give to yourself. You save that so that you'll be okay when the storms of life come along. And then the other 80%, you do whatever you want to with. That's your money. Have fun with it. But you know what? This works in every other area of life too. You give to others first. You give your time. You give your effort. You volunteer. You do things for others. You serve other people. You spend, and then you take care of the things that you need, right? And you're making sure that you are staying healthy. And then the rest of it, rest of your time, have fun. Enjoy life. But do this first, this second, and this third. Now what? You know what has happened? And I'm sorry, I know it's Mother's Day, and so I'm a dad. I'm going to brag on my kids for just a minute. My kids, I mean, honestly, they are the most generous people I've ever met in my life. I don't believe it's what I've done. I believe it's what God did in them. But you know, I regularly have to tell them, hey, listen, watch your bank account because you are spending all your money. It's not because I monitor their bank accounts because we just, I'm just like, hey, what did you do? How's this thing going on? This kind of stuff. I had one of my kids a couple of weeks ago and said they had just dropped a whole bunch of money on somebody. I said, hey, what? That's kind of weird. What's going on? And said, well, that person didn't have any medicine, and I wanted to make sure they had some medicine. And I was like, golly. I mean, it was incredible to me to see that's how they thought. So my question here is, how can your family serve someone this week? Because there are people that around you that would love it for you to serve them this week. And what an opportunity you've got to serve somebody this week. Joshua 24:15 says, but as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. So, where do you start? What do you do? So if you're still with me, here's what I want to tell you to do. Would you commit as a family? Take a couple minutes and commit to serve the Lord. Maybe hit pause for just a second. You gather your family around and say, hey, listen, guys, what if we were to make a commitment to serve people? I think we could do that. Let's make a commitment to serve people around us. Let's be an awesome family, not a average family. So where do you start? The first thing you start with is, hey, does everyone in your family that's old enough to understand what's going on, does everyone in your family, mom, dad, brother, sister, does everyone in your family have a relationship with God through his son, Jesus Christ? That's where it starts. How can you commit to the Lord if you don't even know him? And so parents, I know sometimes you go, ooh, that's a little weird, a little uncomfortable for me. My 13-year-old, I'm not sure we're ready to have that conversation. My 9-year-old, that's kind of hard. No, you can do that. I mean, today, stop for just a minute and ask everyone in your family, hey, let's talk about our relationship with the Lord. And dad, maybe you've been putting this off for a long time. And today's a day for you to put your trust in Jesus. But would you do that today? We'll want to help you with it. You can text the word Jesus to 770-800-8622. We'd love to help you and your family to commit to serving the Lord. It's just that simple. You put your trust in him for the first time. So I got a few homework questions for you. I'll put those on the screen. These will be online in just a little bit. You can grab a screenshot of these if you want to. But what's really most important today is for you to make the determination, mom, dad, kids, that we're going to have an awesome family instead of an average family.